Have you ever met someone well into their 80s who still seems to approach each day with the energy and sparkle of someone decades younger? Meet Mr. Harrison, now 82 years old, who has defied nearly every expectation about what life should look like after 80. Instead of gradually withdrawing from the world, he keeps surprising everyone by how independent, engaged, and healthy he remains. When asked about his secret, he usually shrugs, smiles, and says something humble like, "Oh, I'm just lucky." But once you spend a bit more time talking with him, you'll discover there's something far more intentional going on beneath that modest answer. In this video, I want to share the one principle he swears by, the daily practice that he insists has allowed him to maintain his independence, his well-being, and even his sense of joy long after many of his peers have given up certain freedoms. By the end, you might be as surprised as I was that a concept so simple, something you may have heard mentioned in passing, can hold so much power. Yet once you see how it fits into Mr. Harrison's life, it might just transform your own mindset about aging. Let's start by acknowledging a simple truth. None of us can stop the clock. Age changes in muscle strength, joint flexibility, energy levels, and even cognition are going to happen. But according to Mr. Harrison, the difference between aging well and aging poorly doesn't lie in some expensive medication, elaborate diet, or exotic exercise routine. It lies in your attitude toward challenge. He believes most people begin to lose their independence after 80 because they gradually stop challenging themselves. They slip into routines that are comfortable, requiring minimal effort, under the assumption that rest is always better than any kind of exertion. This might feel safer at first. Why risk overdoing it or hurting yourself, right? Yet ironically, Mr. Harrison says this mindset can be one of the greatest threats to healthy aging. He puts it like this: once you stop pushing yourself, your body and mind decide they're not needed anymore. In other words, inactivity isn't just physical, it's also mental, and it tells your entire system that it's okay to start shutting down. So the big secret for him is to keep an active relationship with small, manageable forms of adversity. Whether that's physical, mental, or emotional, he calls this principle embracing daily challenge. Before you think you already know what he means, consider how thoroughly he applies it. At 82, Mr. Harrison still sets small goals for himself every single day. Sometimes they're about moving his body in new ways, like practicing 5 extra minutes of gentle stretches than he did the day before, or walking 1 more block around the neighborhood. Nothing dramatic, just a little nudge beyond his comfort zone. Other times, the goals are mental, learning a new piece of technology, trying his hand at a new hobby like watercolor painting, or reading a difficult book on a subject he knows little about. He's not chasing big achievements or fancy accolades. He's simply determined not to let his mind stagnate. Then there are social challenges, like reaching out to a friend he hasn't spoken to in years, or attending a local gathering where he might meet new people. When I asked him why he bothers putting in this extra effort, he told me, "It reminds me I'm still part of the world, still able to learn, still able to grow." And that sense of growth fuels everything else, from his energy level to his willingness to cook nutritious meals for himself rather than relying on convenience foods. One story he shared really captures the essence of daily challenge. About a year ago, Mr. Harrison's doctor suggested he incorporate light resistance exercises to help maintain muscle mass. Many seniors would either ignore that advice or try it once, find it uncomfortable, and conclude they're too old. But Mr. Harrison decided to buy a pair of very light dumbbells. He started with something ridiculously easy, just to avoid injuring himself. 2 pounds in each hand, a few repetitions every morning. Slowly, he increased the sets, day by day, adding a rep or 2 each time he felt confident. When those 2-pound weights began to feel like he was lifting feathers, he bought 3-pound ones. Over the course of several months, he realized he had better posture, less trouble carrying groceries, and even more stamina for tasks like gardening. The real key, though, wasn't the weight training itself, but his approach. He didn't treat it as a burdensome chore. He saw it as a daily challenge. A small puzzle to solve about what he could do slightly better today than yesterday. For him, that's what keeps life interesting after 80, and he believes it's also what keeps his body and mind from slipping into decline. If you're still watching and finding this interesting, Let me know by commenting, "I'm ready to grow" below. Now, you might be wondering how this principle of embracing daily challenge applies to the many changes that can occur after 80, like decreased mobility, vision problems, or chronic health conditions. According to Mr. Harrison, the beauty of this principle is that it can be adapted to any starting point. If you can't walk long distances anymore, you can still do gentle seated exercises. If your vision is impaired, you can explore audiobooks or large print materials. If you have trouble cooking elaborate meals, you can still challenge yourself to prepare simpler, healthy dishes that push you just a bit outside your comfort zone. The central idea is that you keep your body and mind engaged with some form of progressive stimulation, rather than retreating into the easiest possible routine. Something else that stands out about Mr. Harrison's routine is his willingness to accept help when needed, while not allowing that help to make him complacent. For instance, he admits that once in a while, he needs assistance carrying heavy items or doing certain repairs around the house. However, he doesn't let that become an excuse to avoid smaller tasks he could handle on his own. If he can still vacuum part of the living room safely, he does it, because it's a mini workout and a confidence booster. If he can still manage the short walk to the local store, he'll do it, even if it's more convenient for someone else to give him a ride. He trusts that maintaining this line between what he must delegate and what he can still do, even if it's somewhat challenging, keeps him more independent in the long run. In his words, "If I let other people do absolutely everything for me, how will I know what I'm still capable of?" That question helps him decide on a daily basis which challenges are productive and which might risk injury or exhaustion. You might be asking, isn't there a point where you just have to accept your limitations? Mr. Harrison would say absolutely, but don't accept them blindly, test them. He believes there's a huge difference between healthy acceptance and needless surrender. Healthy acceptance means acknowledging that certain tasks might be unsafe or too strenuous, especially with your doctor's input. Needless surrender means giving up on tasks you could still do with a bit of adaptation or effort. His recommendation is to talk openly with healthcare providers, physical therapists, or trainers about how to tailor challenges to your specific conditions. They can help you design safe ways to push yourself physically or cognitively so you're not taking reckless risks. If you're consistent with that approach, you might be surprised at how much you can still learn, lift, accomplish, and enjoy even after 80. Then, there's the mental side of aging, which Mr. Harrison feels is often overshadowed by the physical. The same principle of daily challenge applies to the mind. He's not one to spend hours passively in front of the TV. Instead, he might watch a documentary that forces him to think in new ways. Or he'll try a puzzle that's slightly harder than last time. He also keeps up with local events, reads newspapers, and engages in occasional debates with friends, anything that forces his brain to process new information, rather than staying in a bubble. He told me that the mind can become stale if it stops encountering novel ideas, much like muscles can weaken if they never meet resistance. The result, he says, is a sharper memory, more interesting conversations with younger relatives, and a sense of staying relevant in a fast-changing world. Even though it can be frustrating at times, like when learning to navigate new phone apps, he frames that frustration as part of the challenge that keeps him mentally alive. If you're enjoying these insights, leave a comment saying, "Embrace the challenge." Now, let's talk about how Mr. Harrison's single principle can integrate with other aspects of a healthy lifestyle, such as diet, sleep, and social engagement. He points out that embracing daily challenge naturally intertwines with good habits in these areas. For example, if you're physically active, you'll probably sleep better. If you're mentally engaged, you may be less likely to slip into unhealthy eating patterns caused by boredom or emotional distress. And if you're continually pushing yourself to connect with people, whether by phone, in person, or online, your social circle might expand rather than shrink. The synergy between these factors builds momentum, reinforcing each other in a virtuous cycle. He's also realistic about the fact that some days are tougher than others. Maybe you have a bad night's sleep, or a flare-up of arthritis that leaves you feeling drained. On those days, the daily challenge might be as small as standing up a few times to stretch, or reading a couple of pages from a challenging article. But the point is to do something that nudges you beyond the path of least resistance. Even if it's just a little bit, that effort accumulates over time. Mr. Harrison believes it's the consistent layering of these small triumphs that leads to substantial benefits months or years down the road. Eventually, your body and mind come to expect challenge as a normal part of the day. When that happens, you become more adaptable and less likely to panic when life throws you a curveball, whether it's a sudden injury or an emotional setback. One thing that can't be overlooked is how attitude underpins this entire approach. Mr. Harrison radiates a sense of curiosity and optimism, even though he's perfectly aware of his age and its complications. He doesn't deny the reality that certain tasks may take him longer or that some activities from his youth are simply off the table, but he sees each day as a puzzle to be solved. Given my limitations, what's the best I can do today to keep growing? That mindset transforms aging from a slow process of giving things up to an ongoing journey of discovery. It's not that he's chasing eternal youth. He laughs when people suggest he looks young for his age. He's chasing continued relevance, continued capability, and continued enjoyment. And that, he feels, is well within reach for many more people than realize it. You might wonder if he ever regrets anything about his past or has times where he feels like giving up. Like anyone, he's faced sadness, losses of friends and family, and health scares. But he insists that the principle of daily challenge has helped him cope with grief and anxiety better than any medication could. When you have something meaningful to work on or learn each day, it anchors you, reminding you that you still have a role to play. It can also act as a distraction from unproductive worrying. He's careful to differentiate between ignoring problems and actively choosing a productive focus. If he has a medical concern, he addresses it with his doctor. But once that's done, he returns to the question, what new growth can I pursue today? That little shift in perspective is what keeps him from feeling trapped by his age or setbacks. If you're still watching, I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you see areas in your life where you might adopt a small daily challenge? Maybe it's a short walk, a new hobby, or calling a friend you haven't spoken to in a while. Let me know in the comments by saying, I accept the challenge. Mr. Harrison would probably give you a warm smile for taking that step. And in case you're skeptical about whether this approach can work for you, just remember that he didn't suddenly start this habit at age 20. In fact, he only got serious about it in his late 60s after experiencing a minor health scare that forced him to reevaluate his lifestyle. So it's never too late to begin. If you take it one day at a time, you might be amazed at how much progress you can make. After a month, 6 months, or a year. Another detail worth mentioning is that embracing challenge doesn't mean ignoring rest. Mr. Harrison values his downtime. He naps when needed, enjoys sitting on the porch, and has days where he does less if he feels especially tired. The crucial point, though, is that rest is balanced by forward momentum. He doesn't rest so much that he stops being active, nor does he push so hard that he burns out. There's a rhythm to it. Challenge, then recovery, then challenge again. This rhythm ensures that each time he challenges himself, it's productive rather than harmful. Let's summarize the core of his secret. He's not superhuman, nor does he rely on exotic supplements or grueling workouts. He simply makes sure that each day contains a bit of discomfort, a bit of stretching his mental or physical limits, so that he's constantly signaling to his body and mind that they're still needed at peak performance. By doing so, he's maintained a remarkable level of independence well beyond 80, still living in his own home, cooking many of his own meals, and keeping a social calendar that would exhaust someone half his age. He's not free of aches, nor does he claim to be. But he's able to manage those aches without letting them define or limit him, because his baseline level of resilience is far higher than if he spent his days in passive rest. If you found value in this idea, please share it with someone in your life who might benefit, maybe a parent, grandparent, or friend who's looking for ways to maintain independence and health. Many seniors out there feel stuck, assuming that aging is an unstoppable decline. But Mr. Harrison's experience shows that we often have more control than we realize. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future videos on how to thrive in your golden years and beyond. Join our community of people who believe that life after 80 can still be dynamic and fulfilling. So, that's it. The one secret Mr. Harrison swears by for staying independent and healthy after 80 is embracing daily challenge. Start small, adapt to your abilities, and never let yourself believe that you've fully arrived at your limit. Thank you for sticking with me until the end. I hope this story inspires you to see what small steps you can take today, tomorrow, and every day after that to keep growing, learning, and living life on your own terms, no matter what your age. And if you do try this approach, come back and let us know how it's working for you. Hearing each other's stories is often the best motivation to keep going. Until next time, remember that your future is shaped by the actions you choose right now. May you keep finding new ways to challenge yourself and discover, like Mr. Harrison, just how much life can still offer after 80.